who are we? CCLA difference what? Difference makers.
So welcome, welcome, welcome. I see some familiar faces from our last session. My name is Ivy Ewell-Eldridge. I work for the Riverside County Office of Education. I'm an administrator in the realm of literacy, ELA, and ELD, and we are also a part of the CCLA grant for learning acceleration. So thank you so much for joining me today. So we are talking about empowering student voices through collaborative conversations. And I tried to make this as overarching as possible because I know that we have like some different grade spans, different roles in the room. One word of advice, we are going to be doing collaborative conversations. So if you're a singleton at a group, I see a couple. Okay, there'll be some moments where you guys can all work together. I see you in the back, you're like, okay, great, it's after lunch. If you do not want to, I promise I will not make you do that. However, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we were going to be going in that direction. I want to introduce my colleagues that are here with me, and to those of you who are online, I wish I could turn the camera and show them to you. However, we have Dr. Christalle Hart here, and some of you guys are just in her last amazing session on AI and literacy. And we also have Jen Geyer here, and we are all a part of a fantastic team at Riverside County Office of Education. So, first things first, were you all able to access the presentation? Sweet, let's keep on moving. Okay, so we're gonna start. I know it's after lunch, guys, but this is some good stuff, all right? So I have a tendency to do a little heavy lifting, but I promise we're gonna have some lightweight pieces in here, and it's kind of gonna go at your own pace. That's for you guys on Zoom land or in Zoom land as well. So let's start off with just a quick welcome. It is the top of the new year. It's the 16th, so we're like halfway through January already. And I want you to think of one word, okay? Think of one word that represents an intention that you want to set for the new year. Are any of you guys big on New Year's resolutions? I used to be really good at them. And my best friend and I would make long lists and we'd check them off throughout the year. She always was fantastic. I was horrible. But I found that I could stick to maybe a couple of intentional pieces. So, with that in mind, I want you to think of one word, okay, that pertains to as it pertains to you in your role as an educator. Okay, it could be something personal, professional. Think of one word that represents an intention that you want to set this year. And then with the person next to you, okay, or in a breakout room out there in Zoom land, go ahead and share your one word and a quick explanation. Your one word and a quick explanation. I see all of your processing faces on right now. You're like, one word. Two. Okay, so give them 4. Mhm. If you're in Zoom land, we're going to give you about 5 minutes. About 1 more minute. Okay, let's start wrapping it up. So I hope each of you had a chance to share your one word. We've got one more person to share. Go ahead. I'm overhearing, right? Yes. Okay, let's start throwing out some of those words that you have. I'm going to go do the first throw. Mine was impactful. Impactful. Go ahead. Uh-huh. Intentionality. I love it. What else do we have? I heard grace at this table, even though you didn't throw it out, but that's a fantastic one. Someone said, whoa. Any more words you want to throw out there to share for this year? No problem. I just want to encourage you to hold on to that word throughout today's session, okay? And let that kind of help you to embody what we're going to be taking a look at today. And as you move forward into implementing collaborative conversations within your role. So let's keep going. We're just going to press it right here. There we go. So these are our outcomes for today. We're really going to look at the role of collaborative conversations in learning acceleration. That's what we're here for, okay? And really seeing how that plays a part in that. We're also going to be practicing a couple of practical strategies. And as you're looking at the strategies, or as we really work through those strategies together, I want you to start thinking about how you can apply this in your role for the level of students that you serve, for your grade levels, for the teachers that you are working along with. And then also, I'm going to give you some tools and some resources to really support, okay, your work in advocating for student voice and helping to accelerate learning. So let's just go ahead and dive in together. First, we'll start off again with looking at the role of collaborative conversations. So, when we're thinking about collaborative conversations and how it applies to learning acceleration, first thing is to always take a look at exactly what the roles or the components of learning acceleration are. And so, these, when we look at the CCLA graphic, which really helps sum up, okay, the five major components of learning acceleration, we're thinking about evidence based strategies, we're thinking about universal design for learning. We're thinking about providing priority content. Okay. We're also considering how we make sure that we are providing culturally sustaining pedagogy. And also, we're looking at social emotional learning. Well, believe it or not, collaborative conversations are a vehicle. Okay. They are a perfect vehicle for implementing each component of learning acceleration. So keep those components in your mind as well as we start experiencing some of these learning tasks together. And when we think about strategies that promote learning acceleration, we always want to think about it through these three lenses. First of all, it's about designing instruction to meet pupils where they are in the learning. Okay. It's about designing instruction intentionally in that mode. It's also about evidence based approaches. We want to make sure that we are pulling out pieces or using pieces and strategies that we know work based upon evidence, based upon research, and really trying to help students make strong, rapid progress in mastery of knowledge and skills. So it's not about remediation. It's about how do we institute strategies that help them grasp the content, okay, and master the content. It's also thinking about either individual or small group instruction, okay, that uses, again, well-grounded methods for just-in-time scaffolds and differentiation. So think about all those pieces when we're designing instruction that accelerates learning. So, why collaborative conversations for learning accelerations? Well, I gave you the top 10 reasons why collaborative conversations are a great strategy, or strategies using collaborative conversation instruction designed with collaborative conversations in mind, okay, accelerates learning. This is how all of these pieces connect. So, the first one, collaborative conversations, they deepen our understanding through dialogue. Simply put, okay? When engaging in dialogue, students have opportunities to clarify, okay? They have opportunities to learn from each other. They have opportunities to even spark their own thinking, whether it's connecting ideas, okay, or just connecting back to something that maybe they have experienced before. It's like having a well-structured conversation. You're like, huh, I never thought about that. It helps students to deepen their understanding of content through dialogue, through talking it out. Collaborative conversations also build critical thinking skills. Okay. Conversations really require students to analyze, evaluate, and synthesize information. Those are all parts of critical thinking. Okay. Really diving into the content, understanding why, thinking about how, kind of taking those pieces apart, and also being able to articulate what they have learned. Okay. Through speaking. Number three, it increases engagement and motivation. And I want to say well structured collaborative conversations increase motivation and engagement, because have you ever had a conversation with someone and they just take up the whole doggone time and you're like, and you're waiting, can I dive in now? Well, wait, no, no, now. Well, wait, no, now. So I really want to say well structured design for collaborative conversations within instruction. It really increases that motivation. It's also a part of the accountability piece, okay? Everyone knows that they have a part, and we'll talk about some ways to institute that in your classroom. Strengthens communication skills. Okay. This is for our introverts out there as well. This is for our English language learners out there. All right. When you are tasked with having to articulate your learning or your opinion or just your thoughts or ideas that you have, okay, it is practicing communicating clearly, succinctly when necessary, elaborating and providing more details when necessary. That just doesn't come natural for all of us, okay? We need practice. And then we can also provide scaffolds and structures for those who need additional help being able to clarify their thoughts. Our next one we have on this list, strengthens social and emotional skills. In teaching collaborative conversations, okay, and again, I say teaching through collaborative conversations, our students learn how to listen. They learn how to have empathy. Okay. They practice self regulation. Okay. Like I said, oh, can I jump in now? No, let me stop and listen. Okay. All of those pieces, as far as social emotional learning and really just social skills, pro social skills, can take place through the lens of well structured collaborative conversations. Fosters equity and inclusion. I'll go back to our introverts. I'll go back to our marginalized students. Okay. When they have space to truly share their voice, to share their experiences as it relates to their learning. Okay. It fosters opportunity for equity and inclusion when everyone has a chance to share. Okay. And it's expected of them. Provides real-time feedback as teachers, as educators, as we're walking around, okay, and we hear what's going on, and we can either kind of be a guide on the side. Sometimes we can just be like, we can be taking notes, all right? We can provide that feedback. Have you ever thought about this? I like that idea. Did you take a look at such and such? Oh, where did you find that? So real-time feedback, not just from teachers, but also from their peers. Real-time feedback about their thinking, their thoughts, and their understanding. Let's take a look at that next one. Encourages metacognition, thinking about thinking. We were just in a session earlier. Earlier, was it last week or this week? Now we're getting the days all mixed up already. It's just the 16th day. But we were in a session and there was this complex math problem. And we're all adults. And John Antonetti said, so explain how you figured out it was really like what your animal was for Chinese New Year. And I raised my hand to share and I said, bear with me, guys, because I don't know if what I'm going to say is going to make sense. And I had the right answer, but I had to explain how I got there. Okay. And really thinking about my thinking and be able to articulate how did I figure that out. So, again, that metacognition piece supports collaborative problem solving, also showing we don't always have the answers. Okay. We can lean on each other, we can work together. And finally, supports language development. I can't speak about this one enough because that takes us right on into what we're going to talk about as far as priority content and what the expectations of our California state standards are, and also in looking at each of the content areas and how it addresses collaborative conversations being an expectation for students in California, being able to discuss, being able to communicate, being able to clearly articulate their thinking. So that kind of takes us into, again, priority content. I have the first link on there if you want to use this, or go ahead and use your phone or out there in Zoomlandia, because what I did was I pulled out the listening and speaking standards for 4 different grade levels. Because many times, I'll be honest with you, we don't even know that this might be in here, but this is an expectation for student learning. So I pulled up one for kinder, and I'm going to show you 4 different grade bands. And if you have the presentation open, you can go ahead and look at it. But I want you to think about kind of the continuation, what the expectation is at each of those grade levels. Starting out in kindergarten, if this is the base, okay, by the end of kindergarten, what we're expecting them to be able to do, what's taking place in between kindergarten and, let's say, 3rd grade? And notice how it keeps building. Notice how it's continuing to build from grade level to grade level to grade level. I'm going to go back to kinder. Participate in collaborative conversations with diverse partners about kindergarten topics, okay, and texts with peers and adults in small and larger groups. Follow agreed upon rules for discussion. I underlined that for a reason because collaborative conversations and really just teaching each other how to communicate, that has to be taught. And like our speaker this morning, where do we learn some of these skills? Where do we have opportunities for this? Okay, in the classroom. I want you to think about some of our marginalized students that don't have opportunities for conversations in the home, and they don't have opportunities for conversations in the classroom. Where do they get to practice speaking, listening, communicating their ideas, articulating their thoughts, tapping into their metacognition thinking? Where do they have opportunities to practice that? So these are pieces that we want to provide in the classroom. Again, when we're looking at 3rd grade, again, showing that it just builds, that it's not just following agreed upon rules for discussions, okay? It's being able to ask questions to check for understanding, explain their own ideas and understanding. And each of the grade levels, it continues to build. This is what it looks like in grade 7. By this time, they are engaging effectively in a range of collaborative conversations or collaborative discussions. Okay, one-on-one groups or one-on-one in groups, teacher-led, but really being very clear that students are supposed to be talking in classrooms. If we have students that are sitting silent in a classroom, okay, not only are they being deprived of opportunities to learn and communicate effectively, they're also not working towards the expectation of the standard. And here we go in grades 11th and 12th grade. Take a moment and take a look at that. I see some of your eyes like, whoa, buddy. Exactly. So again, I want to leave something with you. If this is not happening in each of the grade levels, how do they fare once they get to grades 11 and 12? How do they get to look at B? Work with peers. Okay, like very clearly, this is something that is the expectation of the standard. We are providing opportunities to teach kids how to do this. Okay, propel conversations, probe reasoning and evidence. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and they just have all these different things that they're, I won't say spewing, all these different things that they're sharing, no evidence, no support, totally and solely based upon feeling, like no claim, no evidence, just sharing it out there. And if the point is to share how we feel about something, by all means, let it rip. But this is what we're also teaching kids how to do. Really be able to support what they're saying with evidence and reasoning. Okay. Ensure a hearing for a full range of positions or on a topic or issue. Okay. Look at this last one, D. Respond thoughtfully to diverse perspectives. Well, buddy, how much do we need that in this day and age? How do we respond thoughtfully and respectfully to a range of diverse perspectives? These are pieces that we have time to teach or that we should be teaching within the classroom. Okay. Now, all content areas, like I said before, they outline the necessity for language development and opportunities for collaborative conversation. So, I'm going to prompt you with a couple of these pieces and just show you where they are. And then we're going to have some time for you to look through them, okay, including those standards, and really be able to see some of the parallel pieces. All right. So first, of course, it's in our literacy framework, all right? And I have a link to some curated pages from the literacy framework. We find this directly right there in the bubble for effective expression, okay? Which talks very clearly about how we want students to be able to express their ideas and their understanding of content and each other and the world. So that's kind of like a gimme for us, all right? All of us who are out here in literacy land, right? But what about the other content areas? And for those of you who work with teachers and who teach other content areas, these are things that we really want to begin to share. But these are expectations that go across all the content areas. When we look at the mathematics practice standards, okay? Practice standard number 3 and number 6, conduct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. Mathematically proficient students try to communicate precisely to others and try to use clear definitions in discussions with others. I have the link right there also for you for the math practice standards. If you'd like to, when we have some time, we're going to go into looking at all of those pieces. Let's take a look at the next content standard. All right, or the next framework, the NGSS, okay, our science. Right? Conversations must take place. They are expected. They go in depth in explaining what is the expectation for each of the grade levels. Okay. For practice 1, asking questions and defining problems. Practice 7, engaging in argument from evidence. Practice 8, obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. Without even diving into these documents, you're probably seeing some parallels for expectations. The question is, how much are we aware of these parallels across the board? And here we go in social studies, okay? Evaluating sources and using evidence in dimension 3. And in dimension 4, communicating conclusions and taking informed action. Okay, so that was front loading you with a lot of information, but we're going to take some time because I want you to be able to dive into these pieces and have some discussions about your thoughts and your understanding of them. So, our first, okay, our first strategy that we're going to use today is the electronic group jigsaw. Okay. And this is what it looks like. And for those of you in Zoom land, I know that each of the documents have been dropped in the chat, or Jen is doing that as we speak. Because when you go into breakout rooms or as we're sitting at our tables today, we're going to take different pieces of that. So let's look at the directions. Join a group or a breakout room based on the document you choose to review. So if you're sitting at a table of 4, choose one document each, okay? Because each of you guys is going to share some of your thoughts and wonders and highlights from that. Then you're going to take 5 minutes to independently read or skim the text, okay? To see what it reveals about collaborative conversations specifically. And of course, take notes of your thoughts. Then after 5 minutes, and I'll give you the 5-minute time, okay? Because it's going to be a full 10 minutes, but I'll let you know when 5 minutes has passed. As a group, come to consensus on the most important ideas to share with others at your table who didn't read yours. Okay? How do we feel about it? Are we ready for this? Give me a thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down. All right. Okay. I'm just going to let you know what happens after that, but not yet. After that 10 minutes, once you guys have come to consensus about what needs to be shared, we're going to work on a collaborative document after you choose one scribe. But let's start off with the first part first. Okay. Take 5 minutes to read after each of you guys decides which one you're going to read. And then you're going to come to consensus about what's important. Go ahead and write your notes on stickies if you need to, or inside of your notebook. All right. Okay. Let's get started. So I cut those documents down as short as I could. So you're just skimming and scanning, but I did place the link to the full document of each of what I gave you at the top of what you opened, just in case you want to have access to the full document. In about 1 more minute, you're going to start sharing with your group, talking about what you feel some ahas, some really important things were from what you read. Okay, within the next 5 minutes, I know I'm cutting you off short, but within the next 5 minutes, go ahead and share with your group some things that you think they need to know about this document, about what you read. All right. I hear you guys are headlong into your conversations, and I absolutely hate that I'm like stopping it for now. However, I want to go through this instructional cycle so that you can start thinking about how this can work in your class. Okay. So the last piece, because this is an instructional technique, okay, instructional scenario, but using adult information. The last piece of this scenario is that I have a graphic organizer for you. And in this case, I put the graphic organizer on Padlet. Okay. You're going to choose one person from your group to be the scribe. And that one person is going to type what your team has decided is most important and that everyone should know in these areas. Okay. Now, do you guys have access to the Padlet? There's no clickable link for it. I'll go right in there and get it for you. Case. Hmm. There we go. tinyurl.com/ccla Padlet 1. Okay. If you weren't able to get it from the queue. Then let me know if you weren't able to access it. It's not going to be in the PDF version of the presentation that you gave. You have to use the Padlet QR. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. Yeah. Right. All right. We have about 1 more minute, my friends. And then let's take a look at what you've added. Okay, so let's take a look at our Padlet for a moment. Is everyone familiar with Padlet by chance? Okay, fantastic. One of the things that let me turn off my Steely Dan. One of the things that I do like about Padlet is the ability to press play and kind of see what some of our responses are. Okay. So in ELA literacy, we have opportunities to practice language should happen every day, provides deeper understanding of author's meaning. For early learners, building foundational conversation exchanges in pre-K and TK will lend itself to collaborative conversation skills in future grades, meaning it has to start early. All right, for our English language learners, ample opportunities for students to express their understanding and thinking through writing, speaking, and more. Students communicate their knowledge in a variety of ways. We as educators should use these varieties to have engaging educational conversations, okay? And it keeps going throughout, a shift from opinion in K-5 to then argument in 6 through 12. Yes. That is something that we have to keep sharing, that there is a shift after 5th grade from opinion to argument. What is your text evidence? Okay. All right. And then it goes on to say, let's see what we have in math. Getting the students to think through and express verbally how they get to an answer. Being able to communicate precisely to others, construct arguments using concrete evidence. Are we seeing some parallels here already? Okay. Justification of solving problems and getting to conclusions using clear definitions. Construct arguments and critique reasoning. We just saw that. Okay. An argument for ELA. For science, reading, interpreting, producing scientific texts equals fundamentals to communicating early. Yes, yes, and yes. Again, there's that word again, argumentation. Okay. Listen, compare, evaluate ideas, asking questions and defining problems. Social studies, it's almost as if we're just looking at one solid list, regardless of the content area. Need to collaborate with others to communicate conclusions and take informed action. Students have to be able to use evidence and understanding whether or not that evidence is reliable. All right. Does anyone want to share out maybe an aha that they found after looking through that continuum of standards for speaking and listening and then taking a peek into some of these different frameworks? Were there any ahas or things that you didn't know were there or that was something that maybe affirmed what you already knew or already thought? Anyone in Zoom land either? All right. How could do it? We have a tribute.
But okay, oh, sorry. What I said is that students need to be doing a lot of talking in the classroom. That a quiet classroom does not mean a productive classroom, and that it's really important that they learn to listen to others with care, which I'm a second grade teacher, so that's a lot about what I do, and then also respond appropriately.
Yes. And when you're talking about that too, it automatically makes me think of engagement because we know that there's different facets of engagement. And sometimes students can be behaviorally engaged, but they are not cognitively engaged. And I remember, like in my first couple of years of teaching, I had, one student, I'll say her name because you don't know who this is. And Miss Nadia would sit there and she would smile and nod, kind of like the penguins. And then when I go back and look at, how she's faring and what she understands, it was very minimal. And I'm thinking, but she's a great student. Well, she was behaviorally engaged, but she was not cognitive engaged. And I missed the mark and not knowing that. Mhm. Over here.
I appreciate seeing all of the frameworks side by side laid out to show that there's a set of transfer skills that we can develop in one content area and bring those across all the other content areas. Because while the way in which we speak in the content areas is going to be different based on the academic language, the skill itself is something that we can keep building upon. So we can't treat this as an isolated type of topic to teach on, and it's something literacy teachers and people who are in literacy, we say to content areas, you are also literacy teachers. And this is the way that we kind of bring that together too, because literacy isn't just about the reading and writing, it's also the listening and speaking component. So this is being developed all the way across and just kind of keeps building on each of these content within the content areas. So I really appreciated that.
Yes, yes, and yes. And often we don't have opportunities to sit with our colleagues in other content areas and really talk about some of those common expectations and what it looks like in the different content areas. If you're working with multiple subject teachers, well, that's a little bit easier because these things are taking place throughout the day. However, there ends up being a divide. And the irony about it is that there is a divide in the understanding of those expectations at the secondary level. However, the expectations actually increase, especially when we're looking at collaborative conversations, just by taking a peek at those different standards. So, what I really want to do right now is as we are moving into this, we're going to take a look at another instructional scenario, but I want you to truly think about how this can apply to either the grade levels that you teach or the content areas that you teach or provide support in, and how this might look different. This instructional scenario we just did, how might that look in a first grade class, a kindergarten class, an 11th grade class? And think about how that can apply. Maybe instead of using a Padlet, maybe you're just putting it up on a whiteboard and you've got some dividers, okay? Maybe this is taking place over a course of multiple days. If you're maybe working with kindergartners, maybe you have your instructional aides who are supporting and having these conversations to get them to share their ideas about their understanding. But throughout the remainder of it and just our entire time together, think about what this might look like within the context that you teach. Okay, so let's look at some additional practical strategies to truly facilitate effective discussions. Because sometimes we want to do it, we just don't know how to do it. I believe that each of you actually have some of these strategies, okay, up your sleeve, and or you may be using them on a regular. So let's just start thinking about maybe how we can plus one some of these strategies. And each of these strategies are also outlined in our framework. And if you opened up the ELA framework, they talk about each of these ones that I put up here. It's kind of a nice little short and sweet list that you can go to. And some of these things I know that you've heard of before. Think, pair, share. That's usually all of our go-to. Okay, that is collaborative conversations. Okay, when thinking about how much do we incorporate this into our instruction. Rather than simply just throwing out a question and waiting for students to answer, okay? How are you allowing opportunities, facilitating opportunities for students to be working together? Quick write, quick draw. We've got inside, outside circles, okay? That is very similar to Socratic seminar when we're looking at that, at our secondary level. We've got Socratic seminar up there, opinion, formation cards, structured academic controversy, all of these pieces. If you've never done any of these before, go ahead, click that link. Our ELA ELD framework, when it talks about effective instruction, actually explains each of these structures. If there's something maybe that you haven't used before, or if you are a coach or a reading specialist and you're supporting teachers, it might be something, if you're admin, it may be something that you want to share with someone else as you are supporting them in designing instruction and incorporating collaborative conversation structures into their classroom. So it may be something long like what we just did, or maybe interspersing these strategies intentionally throughout your instruction and throughout the design of the lesson. So we're going to run through another instructional sequence with our time together. Okay, we've got about 30 minutes left. And we're going to try this one again. It's just like the one we just did, but with a little bit of variance. Particularly, we started off with an inquiry activator using text. You guys took some time and looked at text, but this time we're going to start out with an inquiry activator using pictures, and you'll see some of those up on the windows, okay? We are going to skip the vocabulary review. However, that could and should go inside an instructional sequence like this, okay? We're going to do a little bit more independent reading. We're going to have some group discussion with guided note taking. In our last scenario, we didn't do guided note taking, but I am giving you a template of sorts that you can use for guided note taking. Okay, we're also going to, we may not get to the collaborative poster. However, if you are like me, you like to scroll to the end of the book, I have some different scenarios on how you might wrap up an instructional sequence like this with a poster or some other ideas, okay? So let's dive in. All right, we don't have these amazing easels, but we do have some handy dandy windows, okay? And what you're going to do is first, you're going to get up with your sticky notes, and I want you to visit each poster and stand by the one that you find the most interesting. So grab some sticky notes, grab something to write with, take a look at each of the pictures of the posters over here, and you're going to stop at the one that you find the most interesting. If you are out there in Zoom land, okay, if you go to this slide, okay, you can click each of those posters. And I want you to land on one that you find the most interesting. So these pictures are the same ones that are up here. But with your sticky notes, for those of you who are here in person, I want you to start off with these sentence starters. I think, I question, I wonder, okay? You're going to choose one because the one that you choose is going to connect to the next step. So look at each one, choose one, and stay at that one that you are most interested in. Same thing with those in Zoom land, okay? Choose one, hold that in your mind, collect your thoughts. So remember, once you choose one, stay at that one because when you're there, there's something that comes along with it. And if you're in Zoom land, since you don't have Post-it notes with you, instead of Post-it notes, for those of you who are in Zoom, go ahead and add, okay, what you think, what you question, what you wonder. And in this case, specify which one you are responding to. In picture number 1, comma, I think this. In picture number 3, I am wondering why, blah, 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 blah. Picture number 2 makes me think about such and such and such. Just one picture. So you choose one picture and you stay there. Nope, all 3 prompts for one picture that you choose, okay? Yes, ma'am. Okay. So once you choose that one, stay at that poster because I have something for you. Okay. If you are at this picture, okay, number 1, write a number 1 on your poster or remember that you're at number 1, okay? Because you're going to have a specific article that goes with number 1. So you can write number 1 on there, just so you know, okay? So remember that you are at poster number 1. If you are at the this poster right here with our younger children, you are at poster number 2. And if you are at the last poster with the middle school children, you are at poster number 3. Total sidebar for those of you who are just in our AI session, all the pictures that you see in this presentation are completely AI generated. They are. Uh-huh. And that's also how you get around like searching for hours on Google for the right picture. Instead you have the right prompt and the right AI generator, okay? Okay, so remember what number that you're at because when you go back, first of all, you're going to have some time to share right now at your poster what you put on your post-it notes. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes just to take a look at the post-it notes that are on your poster and talk to those who are standing with you. And then we're going to go back and do a little bit of reading to support that picture and your ideas. So take 2 minutes and talk with whoever you're standing with at that poster about what additional comments you added. Share what you thought, what you wondered, what you questioned. Go ahead. If you are in Zoom land, okay, take a look at the comments that were put inside of the chat and go and reply to some of those if you like. Okay, I hear some great talking going on, and I see some great comments in the chat on Zoom. The next part of a lesson like this, and of course, if you were doing this instructional scenario, you would be creating the pacing based upon the needs of your students, what the point of it is that you wanted to convey. This part alone could be just a block of time leading into something else, okay? The next part of this instructional scenario, okay, again, because we have adult educators in the room, we got a little bit of heavy lifting, but I always want to make sure that I'm supporting with resources and peer-reviewed articles and pieces like this. So go back to your seats, okay? And there is an article that connects with each of those pictures. This article might answer some of your questions about what you were thinking or what you were wondering. If you are on Zoom, Jen is going to put in the chat, okay, the link to each article. She's like, okay, that's what I'm doing next. Okay. If you are sitting at your seat, if you go to this next slide and click the article, you can access it directly from there. Okay. So if you were standing at picture number 1, go ahead and open the article. Same thing with number 2 and number 3. And just like the last documents that I gave you, I only gave you pieces of the original document, but I put the link to where you can find the entire document on there, okay? Because I want to make sure that you have access to the author's entire work. But I put only a few pages on there for you to have access to. Just like the last instructional scenario, okay? You're going to read and annotate, or in your case, go ahead and write notes on there, on your in your notebook, okay? And then I have a graphic organizer on here. In quadrant number 1, okay, you're going to record your synthesis in the summary box, and in quadrant number 1, organize your thoughts. So for yourself, you're going to be recording your synthesis in the summary box where you see the blue arrow and organizing your thoughts in quadrant number 1. Now, this is a fillable PDF. You can click that and download a copy for yourself. I saw someone say, ooh, okay. So everyone should be able to download a copy of this. You don't have to write on there, of course. But again, the whole point of this is guided note taking. So as you read, annotate, and you're only going to fill in the summary piece, which is your understanding. This is all independent, and quadrant number 1. If you've done this before, then what you'll know is that we're going to have time to go through within your group and see what they wrote in their quadrant number 1. Okay. So I have about 7 minutes on the clock, but we can stretch that as needed. I'll give you some time to do that.
I need your love. You got that hold over me. Now that I got your love, you know that I'll never leave. And I wanted you to share my life. I had no doubt in my mind. And it's been you, woman, right down the line. I know how much I lean on you, only you can see. The changes that I've been through, I've left a mark on me. You've been as constant as the northern star, the brightest light that shines. It's been you, woman, right down the line. Just wanna say there's a way of telling you everything I can never say before. Yeah, there's a way of telling you so much love. Could you believe in me through my darkest night? Put something better inside of me. You brought me into the light. I put them all behind. It was you, woman, right down. Day before, yeah, this is my way of telling you that so much more if I should doubt myself, if I'm losing ground. I won't turn to someone else. They don't let me down. When I wanted you to shape my life, I had no doubt in my mind. It's been you, woman, right down the line. Time people go to I don't need this stuff. I don't need your hand. I don't to think that you'd be gone. That I must be prepared anytime to pay. Through what you've done, through where lies from you, can't stop the hand of living on the run. Take it all for granted. You're the only one living on the run. So sometimes you think I'm your fool. You can touch me right. I keep holding on. I keep holding on. Keep holding on. I keep holding on. I keep holding on. You can stop.
Okay, we're gonna go. Our timer just went off for just experiencing this piece. And again, we know that you didn't have enough time to read the whole piece or to maybe even organize with your thoughts the way you wanted to. But again, I just wanted you to be able to experience this entire process for yourself. And in response to some of your I notice, I think, I wonder questions, I love what you guys have on all of the posters. I wanted to take a second and be very explicit in answering some of those pieces. Each of these steps has to be taught and practiced. For those out there in our Zoom land, every single step has to be taught and practiced. Let's also address the elephant in the room. Sometimes students are not mature enough to maintain collaborative conversations at the beginning of the year of certain grade levels, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean that we don't provide any opportunities to have conversations. They just might look a little bit differently. Okay, with structure, with practice, with teaching each of these things individually. In the very beginning, you might be teaching a strategy or a protocol, whole group to the whole entire class, okay? And they're just working with their partner. When I taught fourth grade a million years ago, and I was like, we're going to do these literacy circles. We're doing these lit circles, okay? The very first week of school, the first 2 weeks of school, we would practice whole group every single stage of lit circles so that by the time we got to the second, third month, okay, or for one class, the second trimester, okay, they could go and do these pieces individually. But the point was, we were going to do these because collaborative conversations are important. Okay, so yes, I want to be very clear in saying that these pieces need to be taught explicitly. You may have some groups that gel and they can synthesize and they're ready to take ownership and responsibility with a set of clear directions. And you may have some where you might be a part of their literacy, their lit circle, okay, or their collaborative group. And in kindergarten and first grade, for any of you guys who read the second article, that article is a fantastic article in looking at how a first grade teacher went through the process. It's a research article throughout the entire school year, okay, teaching the social emotional side of collaborative conversations, teaching respect, setting those norms for the conversations, because all of those things do have to be taught, okay? With that said, the next part of this lesson would be, let's see, now I just opened it up. The next part of this lesson would be teaching group discussion roles. And this is what I was just talking about when I would do lit circles, okay? You had to teach these roles. The very first time, everybody might be learning how to be a facilitator. Again, you will know your group of students and be able to decide, okay, are they ready to do this independently? Do I need to assign roles? Okay. Do I want to limit these pieces? Do I suggest that you assign what it says, all 7 roles? No, please don't. Okay, at one time. But maybe you want to be intentional on what you have your groups doing once they go and start working together. Okay. So for a couple of seconds, I'm being mindful of our time. I want you to look at what each of these discussion roles would be. And if we were to go into our collaborative conversations, which role would you choose? The important piece about this is now, again, in the one class that I'm thinking about that I had years ago, I would rotate those roles so that everyone, okay, had a chance to learn the role, but also this is an accountability piece that everyone is valued, everyone has a voice, everyone is a very important part of this discussion, okay? That everyone's voice is needed, that your insight is important. In this next slide, I give you some sentence stems for each of these roles. And this is helpful too, because every student isn't going to know what they need to do. And it doesn't matter what grade they're in, okay? Lit circles can take place in the younger grades. It just depends on what you're asking the students to do. Okay, it depends on what scaffolds you're asking them. It might be something as simple as I agree with Ivy because I disagree with Ivy because another idea I have is, okay, teaching those pieces. And again, those should be taught in whole group. Those don't even have to be in a small collaborative group. It could be when you're having number talks. Okay, they use that same type of collaborative language. But again, getting students to be effective expressors. That's our goal. That's our end goal. The next part of this lesson would be that each person in your group, okay, shares with you what they put in their number one circle. So not only are they sharing what's in their number one circle, you are recording what they tell you. Okay, let's take 5 minutes and do that because I do want you to practice that. What this entails is active listening. For those of you who are wondering what type of accountability and what type of grading or whatever may go along with this, okay, an individual at that table, a part of this discussion, should be able to articulate what another person in their group said or what another person in their group was thinking about. Okay, that's the point of this. Practicing active listening. Okay, practicing really being present when another person is talking and being able to digest that. So let's take a moment and do that. If you use this sheet, all right, I want to give you about 5 minutes to record what the other person's thoughts were as they were sharing. All right, go ahead.
Yet you're moving, and I can't say. I open up that door and walk away. You know if you broke my heart. Oh, oh, oh.
I'm gonna stop with this. Okay, you can go ahead and bring it up. Yep, that's all right, Michelle. Okay, we're almost there, everyone. Like I said, I know that we're doing a shortened version of this, but I wanted you to walk away with at least two versions of an instructional scenario and be able to see how different collaborative conversation protocols and strategies could fit into your world, into your context, and what you would be sharing. Ideally, what you would do is your team would have had time to discuss during the inquiry activator. Notice that there was a specific text that went with each picture, which also broadens the conversation once they go back to their team, because it's a possibility that at your table or within your group, everyone has had a different article, but it all centers around, in this case, collaborative conversations. So that also gives each person something to contribute differently to the conversation, which is also what happened when we were looking at the different frameworks. Where could this go next? Okay. You might have some culminating activity. Again, would this all take place on the same day? Probably not. All right. So I have some ideas on here for you. Create a poster, have the team create a collaborative poster, or maybe you want the team to record something on Flipgrid, which apparently now is called Flip. Okay. Maybe you want to have one speaker. Okay. Maybe you want them to give a presentation for our upper grades. Maybe you want them to do a social media post. If you use Remind or something like that, they can post in a thread like that. If you have a specific Instagram hashtag, maybe you want to have them post something on Instagram with your classroom hashtag. And then someone needs to go and respond to their comment. Okay. A short video, so many opportunities for that. An individual summary of learning. Maybe you want the culminating piece to be a writing activity. Share what you learned about collaborative conversations based upon your independent reading and the insight from the members of your team. What I'm looking to say is there should be some type of culminating activity to this, okay, with some specific success criteria on here. So I put some on here. Communicates the most important ideas in the text, okay, or the idea. Relates to questions on the graphic organizer, includes pictorial or graphic representation. As long as students know, okay, that the product of this is learning, okay, and using all of this time together to have some deeper learning about something that is very specific. Okay. We do not have time to go through the wrapping it up. However, I do want you to take these thoughts along with you. How might you use today what you've learned? And I've heard some of you guys talk about that. What's most helpful? Okay. Questions or comments? You do have my email address at the top of this presentation. So if you have questions or comments or anything that you want to share with me personally, please feel free to do that. Email myself or Dr. Hart over here. And last but not least, I want to thank you for joining me today. And your feedback is very much important. So I would ask you to take a few minutes to share your thoughts. Now, I left on there, put your session title here, but I'm hoping you remember what the session title is. I would greatly appreciate your feedback. And once again, thank you so much for joining me out there in Zoom land and also here in person. Have a wonderful time the remainder of the CCLA Summit. Thank you again.